Close your eyes and attempt to summon the images of the Amazon. You likely see the spotted coat of a jaguar, the coiled strength of an anaconda, or the flash of a macaw's wing. Perhaps you can name a dozen species if you are well-read, or 20 if you are a scholar of the wild. But now, take a breath and prepare for a reality that renders your knowledge obsolete. Within the emerald shadows of this basin, over 3 million species exist in a frantic dance of life and death, and scientists estimate that a staggering 80% of them remain unnamed. They are the ghosts of the foliage, creatures that kill, reproduce, and vanish into the soil without a single human ever acknowledging their existence. This is not a chronicle of the famous icons of the rainforest. This is an exploration of the forbidden Amazon, the hidden, the grotesque, and the terrifying entities that dwell in the lightless caverns and the sun-baked canopies. We are stepping into a realm where the most dangerous predators do not roar. They wait in absolute silence. And as we peel back the layers of the leaf litter, we will discover that the forest has not only swallowed unknown animals, but entire human civilizations, leaving us to walk upon the roofs of forgotten empires. The scale of this wilderness defies the human capacity for measurement. Spanning 7 million square kilometers, the Amazon basin is a monolithic expanse, larger than Western Europe. It is not a single forest, but a vertical labyrinth of overlapping worlds. There is the high ground of the terra firme, where ancient giants reach for the clouds. There is the Vazia, flooded by the milky, sediment-rich veins of the Andes, and the Igapo, where acidic, tea-colored waters mirror the sky, and fish navigate through the crowns of submerged trees. Deep within these veins lies the true protagonist of our journey, the invisible life. We begin with the most lethal entity in the jungle, and it is not what you expect. It possesses no fangs, no claws, and no intimidating roar. Measuring a mere 7 centimeters, the Lonomia obliqua, or the assassin caterpillar, is a master of biological treachery. Before it transforms into a harmless moth, it clings to the bark of trees in clusters, its body a perfect mosaic of greens and browns that vanish against the texture of the wood. The trap is set for the unwary. A hand resting against a trunk, or a child playing beneath the shade, is all it takes. The caterpillar's spines are hollow needles that inject a venom so sophisticated it borders on the supernatural. It does not cause immediate agony or swelling. Instead, it systematically dismantles the human body's ability to clot blood. Your internal chemistry forgets how to heal. Microscopic tears that occur naturally in our tissues begin to leak. The victim bleeds from the gums, the nose, and eventually, the eyes. It is a slow, internal dissolution where the body essentially empties itself into its own cavities. While the antidote exists, the race against the clock through the labyrinthine rivers often ends in tragedy. But as we move from the forest floor to the dark recesses of the earth, the nightmares grow larger. Imagine entering a rare Amazonian cave, the air heavy and stagnant. Your flashlight beam cuts through the gloom to reveal a segmented, reddish nightmare 30 centimeters long. This is the Scolopendra gigantea, the largest centipede on the planet. It hangs from the ceiling by its rear legs, a living coil of aggression. As a bat flutters past, the centipede launches itself into the air, snatches the flying mammal, and begins to consume it while still suspended. This is not folklore. It is an evolutionary masterpiece of brutality. Its venom is a chemical cocktail that paralyzes vertebrates instantly, allowing the centipede to dissolve its prey from the outside in. For a human, the strike is a descent into hours of agonizing fever and heart palpitations, a visceral reminder that our place at the top of the food chain is a fragile illusion. Yet, the horrors of the biology are matched by the mysteries of the soil itself. For centuries, historians claimed the Amazon was a pristine wilderness, a green desert, incapable of supporting large human populations. They were wrong. Using LiDAR technology, scanners that strip away the vegetation with laser precision, archaeologists have recently uncovered a massive urban network in the Upano Valley. Beneath the roots lie avenues, plazas, and complex drainage systems that once supported tens of thousands of people. These were not primitive camps. They were sophisticated cities that thrived for 2 millennia. They disappeared, not because the forest defeated them, but because European diseases traveled up the rivers faster than the explorers themselves. The jungle did not grow over an empty land. It grew over a graveyard of empires. Even the legends of the water carry a kernel of terrifying truth. Consider the candiru, the tiny, translucent vampire fish. While the sensationalist tales of it swimming up a stream of urine are largely debunked by modern science, its reality as a parasite is no less disturbing. It is a heat-seeking needle that finds its way into the gills of larger fish to feast on their blood. It is a reminder that in the Amazon, the smallest things are often the most relentless. And then there are the places where the earth itself seems to rebel. Deep in the Peruvian jungle lies the Shanai Timpishka, the river that boils. For generations, it was dismissed as an indigenous myth until geologists confirmed its existence. Reaching temperatures of nearly 100 degrees Celsius, the water is a death trap for any creature that falls in, cooking them alive in seconds. Without a nearby volcano to explain the heat, the river remains a geothermal enigma, a testament to the deep, pressurized veins of the earth reaching up to touch the surface. But perhaps the most profound lesson of the Amazon is found in the story of Fordlandia. In 1928, the industrialist Henry Ford attempted to impose the rigid order of a Michigan factory town on the heart of the Tapajos River. He built American houses with tin roofs that turned into ovens in the tropical heat and enforced strict prohibitions on local customs. Most fatally, his engineers planted rubber trees in dense, uniform rows. In the wild, rubber trees grow far apart to escape the specialized fungi that prey on them. By creating a monoculture, Ford built a biological highway for destruction. The South American leaf blight decimated the plantation, and the jungle eventually reclaimed the steel and the brick. Today, Fordlandia is a ghost town, a skeletal remains of American ambition rotting in the humidity. It stands as a monument to the fact that the Amazon is not a resource to be managed, but a living, breathing system with its own ancient laws. Those who enter with the intent to dominate are eventually consumed by the very silence they tried to break. This defiance is even etched into the ground we walk on. The natural soil of the rainforest is notoriously nutrient poor, yet archaeologists have found vast patches of terra preta, a deep, black, man-made earth. This was a deliberate invention of ancient peoples, a mixture of charcoal, bone, and organic waste that remains fertile thousands of years later. These ancient societies were not just inhabitants, they were master engineers of the environment, creating a legacy of life that still feeds the region today. We are only now beginning to read the chapters of this hidden history, from the massive geoglyphs of Acre to the paleoburrows, gigantic tunnels carved not by water, but by the claws of extinct ground sloths that once walked these woods 10,000 years ago. You can still place your hand into the grooves left by these prehistoric titans, a bridge across time in a forest that forgets nothing. Every year, as the smoke of illegal fires rises and the mercury from gold mining taints the water, we lose more than just trees. We lose the last great library of the planet before we have even learned to translate its language. Each hectare that falls is a lost cure, a forgotten history, and a species that will never be named. The true tragedy is not the loss of what we know, but the quiet extinction of the unknown. And yet, in the most remote corners, the ancient pulse remains. The assassin caterpillar still waits on its bark, the boiling river still clouds the air with steam, and the ruins of nameless cities still sleep beneath the weight of the emerald canopy. The Amazon remains a realm of shadows, guarding secrets that challenge everything we believe about our world and our history. As the sun sets over the endless canopy, one must wonder how many more empires are currently breathing beneath our feet, waiting for the light to hit their stone faces for the first time in 1,000 years. This architectural silence was shattered only recently, not by a shovel, but by a pulse of light. For centuries, the dense canopy of the Amazon acted as a vault, a living green ceiling that refused to let the eyes of the modern world see the secrets of the forest floor. We once believed this wilderness was a pristine, untouched void, a place where humans were merely transient shadows. But technology has finally pierced that veil. Using LiDAR, a sophisticated laser scanning system that can peer through miles of interlocking branches to map the ground beneath, archaeologists have uncovered a staggering truth. In the remote Upano Valley of Ecuador, the forest floor revealed an urban grid so massive it has forced us to rewrite the history of the Americas. This was not a collection of primitive huts. It was a sprawling, interconnected network of cities, plazas, and straight avenues that stretched for miles. For over 2,000 years, a complex hierarchical society thrived here, engineering drainage canals and raised agricultural platforms with a precision that rivals the great civilizations of the Andes. Thousands of structures, once home to tens of thousands of people, now sit as silent skeletons beneath the roots of ancient trees. This was an Amazonian metropolis that remained invisible to us until only a few years ago. The tragedy of these lost empires is that they did not fall to the sword, but to a ghost. Long before the first European explorers set foot in these specific reaches of the interior, their diseases had already arrived. Smallpox, measles, and influenza traveled up the river systems like an invisible fire, jumping from tribe to tribe, village to village, through indirect contact. Entire civilizations were likely wiped out before they ever saw a white man. By the time the explorers of the 19th and 20th centuries hacked their way into these regions, they found what they thought was a virgin forest. They didn't realize they were walking through a cemetery. The forest, patient and relentless, simply reclaimed the stone and the earth, wrapping the ruins in vines and moss until the memory of those people was buried under layers of emerald. To understand the Amazon is to realize that the primitive wilderness we see today is actually a landscape of recovery, a beautiful shroud covering the remains of a forgotten world. But the forest does not only hide the remains of the dead, it shelters creatures that seem to have been forged in a fever dream. If you were to climb into the dark, damp recesses of an Amazonian cave, your flashlight might catch a movement that defies biological logic. There, hanging from the ceiling by its rear legs, is the Scolopendra gigantea, the giant Amazonian centipede. This is a creature the size of a human forearm, a segmented, rust-colored predator that has mastered a hunting strategy so brutal it borders on the impossible. In the pitch blackness, it waits for the high-pitched chirps of bats. When a bat flies past, the centipede lances out, snatching the flying mammal mid-air with its front legs, while the rest of its body remains anchored to the rock. It doesn't just bite, it uses specialized limbs called forcipules to inject a devastating cocktail of toxins that paralyzes the bat almost instantly. Then, while still suspended in the air, the centipede begins to feed, secreting enzymes that dissolve the prey's flesh from the outside in. For a human, a bite from this titan is rarely fatal, but it is an experience of pure, unadulterated agony. It brings hours of extreme pain, fever, swelling, and a racing heart. A visceral reminder that in the Amazon, the hierarchy of the food chain is far more fluid than we like to imagine. This sense of unease follows you from the caves down into the water, where the line between myth and reality becomes even more blurred. There is no creature in the Amazonian basin more shrouded in terrifying folklore than the candiru. It is a tiny fish, often no longer than a few centimeters, nearly transparent, and shaped like a needle. In the scientific world, it is known as a hematophagous parasite, a vampire of the river that usually seeks out the gills of larger fish to feast on their blood. It enters the gill cover, anchors itself with sharp spines, and drinks its fill before slipping back into the murky depths. However, for over a century, a darker story has circulated among travelers and locals alike. The legend that the candiru can detect the stream of human urine in the water, swimming up the flow to enter the body through the urethra. Once inside, the story goes, its spines lock it in place, requiring agonizing surgery to remove. While modern science has struggled to replicate this behavior in a laboratory setting, and many experts dismiss the urine tracking theory as an ecological myth born of mistranslation and fear, the fear itself is rooted in a very real biological horror. There is a single, heavily debated medical case from 1997 in Brazil where a candiru was allegedly removed from a human, and while the mechanics of the event are questioned, the fish's parasitic efficiency is undeniable. It is a creature that thrives on the lifeblood of others, a silent traveler in the silt-heavy waters that reminds us that the most dangerous things in the forest are often the ones you cannot see. The Amazon doesn't need to invent monsters. The reality of a parasitic fish that can kill from the inside is haunting enough. If the creatures of the water are strange, the water itself can be even more miraculous. Deep within the central Peruvian jungle, in a region sacred to the Ashaninka people, there is a river that should not exist. They call it Shanai Timpishka, which translates to boiled with the heat of the sun. For decades, Western scientists dismissed stories of a boiling river in the Amazon as pure folklore, arguing that without a nearby volcano, such a phenomenon was geologically impossible. But the elders were not lying. In 2011, geoscientist Andres Russo followed the legends and discovered a 4-mile stretch of water that actually reaches temperatures of nearly 200 degrees Fahrenheit. It is a place of haunting beauty and lethal heat, where steam rises in thick white plumes against the green backdrop of the jungle. Small animals, frogs, lizards, even birds that accidentally fall into the current are cooked alive within seconds, their bodies floating downstream as white, boiled husks. The mystery of the boiling river lies in its source. There is no volcanic activity for hundreds of miles. Instead, the water is heated by a massive hydrothermal system. Rainwater falls in the distant Andes, seeps deep into the earth through faults and fractures, and is heated by the planet's internal pressure and hot rock at staggering depths. This superheated water then surges back to the surface, emerging in the Upano Basin as a boiling torrent. For the Ashaninka, this is a place of immense spiritual power, a site where shamans communicate with the spirits of the forest. It serves as a potent reminder that the indigenous knowledge we often dismiss as myth is frequently a precise ancestral observation of the natural world. The Amazon is a place where the laws of nature seem to bend, where the earth itself can boil without fire, and where the history of humanity is written in the soil and the shadows. This duality, the intersection of brutal biology and ancient human ingenuity, is the true pulse of the rainforest. We see it in the way the forest floor was terraformed by vanished hands, and we see it in the specialized evolution of a centipede that hunts in the dark. The Amazon is a living archive, a place where every leaf and every ripple in the water hides a story that has been millions of years in the making. It is a realm that demands a specific kind of respect, one that acknowledges that we are mere visitors in a system that was functioning perfectly long before we arrived. As we look deeper into the green abyss, we begin to realize that the most terrifying thing about the Amazon isn't the predators or the heat. It's the realization of how much we have already lost without ever knowing it was there. The further we venture into this labyrinth, the more the forest reveals that its most effective defenses are not always claws or venom, but the sheer complexity of its design. It is a world where a tiny, transparent fish can command more fear than a jaguar, and where a river can be as deadly as a volcano. The Amazon is not a place to be conquered, it is a place to be deciphered, one layer of shadow at a time. Every discovery, whether it is a lost city or a boiling stream, is a testament to the fact that our map of the world is still tragically incomplete. The deeper we go, the more the forest seems to watch us back, its ancient eyes hidden behind a curtain of vines, guarding the secrets that still breathe in the silence of the trees. The legends of the elders were never just stories. They were warnings, and those who ignore the wisdom of the past often find themselves lost in a wilderness that has no room for arrogance. As the mist clings to the riverbanks and the sounds of the canopy begin to shift with the coming night, the true scale of this hidden world becomes overwhelming. We are standing on the edge of a frontier that is both ancient and entirely new, a place where the ground beneath our feet is made of the memories of millions, and the water we drink carries the heat of the Earth's core. The Amazon is a masterpiece of survival, a testament to the endurance of life in its most extreme and beautiful forms. It is a place that reminds us that even in our modern age, there are still corners of the earth where mystery reigns supreme, and where the next turn of the river could reveal a wonder that challenges everything we thought we knew about our planet. The forest is not empty, and it is certainly not silent. It is a pulsating, breathing entity that is only just beginning to tell us its true name. The Amazon does not need to exaggerate to terrify you. It only needs you to look closer at what has always been there, hidden in plain sight, waiting for the moment you lower your guard. Every shadow in the undergrowth, every ripple in the blackwater, and every stone half buried in the mud is a piece of a puzzle that we are only now beginning to assemble. We are walking through a landscape that is as much a museum as it is a battlefield, where the ghosts of ancient kings reside alongside predators that have remained unchanged for eons. The deeper we dive into this emerald heart, the more we realize that the greatest mystery of all is not what the forest is, but what it has seen. In the gathering gloom of the jungle floor, where the light rarely reaches and the air is thick with the scent of damp earth and decay, the boundaries between the past and the present begin to dissolve, leaving us with a singular, haunting question about what else is waiting to be found. That question leads us directly into the black, oxygen-poor waters of the floodplains, where the silence is heavy and the visibility is zero. In these murky depths, there is a creature that can stop a human heart without ever baring a tooth or unsheathing a claw. It is the porqué, the Amazonian electric eel. To understand this predator, we must first strip away the labels we have forced upon it. The porqué is not an eel at all. Anatomically, it is a member of the knifefish family, a biological relative of the catfish that has traded the traditional weapons of the river for a power that borders on the supernatural. Reaching lengths of over 2 meters and weighing more than 20 kilograms, its body is a living, breathing battery. Nearly 80% of its physical mass is occupied by 3 specialized electric organs, composed of thousands of cells called electrocytes, stacked in rows like the plates of a voltaic pile. When the porqué chooses to strike, these cells discharge in unison, unleashing a surge of up to 860 volts. To put that into perspective, the electrical outlets in most modern homes provide 110 or 220 volts. The porqué delivers nearly 4 times the power of a domestic socket. It is a discharge capable of paralyzing a horse midstream or dropping a full-grown bull. While confirmed human deaths from the electricity itself are rare, the true danger lies in the immediate loss of consciousness. The shock knocks the victim out instantly, and the river does the rest, claiming the body as it sinks into the silt. But science has recently discovered something even more terrifying about this predator. It does not just wait for you to come to it. Biologist Kenneth Catania documented that the porqué is capable of leaping partially out of the water to press its chin directly against an intruder on land. By arching its body, it creates a high-voltage circuit that bypasses the dispersive properties of the water, delivering the full, agonizing brunt of its power directly into the flesh of the attacker. It is a calculated, active defense, a biological anti-aircraft system that has been refined over millions of years, reminding us that in the Amazon, the very elements themselves can be weaponized against you. As we move from the electrified waters back into the dense, suffocating green of the interior, we encounter a story that has haunted the indigenous peoples of the basin for centuries. From the highlands of Bolivia to the northern reaches of Brazil, the elders speak of the mapinguari. They describe it as a towering, bipedal beast covered in thick, matted fur, possessing a stench so foul it can disorient a hunter, and a roar that echoes like a thunderclap through the trees. Some accounts even speak of a second mouth located on its belly, a detail that led many Western anthropologists to dismiss the entire legend as mere folklore, the colorful imaginings of forest-dwelling tribes. However, paleontologists have begun to notice a chilling correlation. The physical descriptions of the mapinguari, the massive claws, the slow, deliberate movements, the impenetrable hide, match perfectly with an animal that we know once walked this earth, the giant ground sloth. The megatherium and its relatives were the titans of South America until about 10,000 years ago. These were not the small, lethargic creatures we see hanging from branches today. They were the size of small elephants, capable of standing on their hind legs to strip the canopy bare. Their skin was reinforced with osteoderms, small, bony plates embedded in the dermis that acted as a natural suit of armor. Indigenous legends say the mapinguari is immune to arrows, and science confirms that a sloth's hide would indeed have sent a flint-tipped projectile ricocheting harmlessly away. While there is no physical evidence that a small population survived into the modern era, the mapinguari represents something perhaps more profound, a collective ancestral memory. The oral
In the
traditions of
beginning,
the
the land
Amazon
was
are
sleeping.
so ancient
Then
and
the
so
ancestors
precise that they may have preserved the image of a monster that the first humans in this forest faced face to face. It is a ghost of the Pleistocene, a shadow of a time when true giants roamed the earth and humans were merely witnesses to their power. Evidence of these titans is not limited to stories whispered around a fire. Deep within the Amazonian soil, geologists have stumbled upon structures that defy conventional explanation. These are the paleotocas, massive, perfectly circular tunnels bored into the earth, some stretching for dozens of meters. They are too uniform to be the result of water erosion, and far too large for any living animal to have created. When you step inside one of these ancient burrows, the air grows cold and still, and your flashlight reveals something haunting: parallel grooves etched into the walls and ceiling. These are claw marks, preserved for 10 millennia. They are the fingerprints of the giants, the literal traces of a world that ended before our history books began. To place your hand in the groove of a claw mark, made by a 3-ton sloth or a giant armadillo, is to touch the pulse of a lost epoch. It is one of the few places on Earth where the veil between the living and the extinct is worn thin enough to feel. Yet, while we look for the footprints of giants, the most immediate danger often comes from something that can hide in the shadow of a single leaf. We must now speak of the creature that holds a record no one wishes to challenge: the most venomous spider in the world. This is the armadillo, the Brazilian wandering spider of the genus Phoneutria. Unlike most spiders that spin a web and wait for the world to come to them, the armadillo is a nomad. It is a hunter that stalks the forest floor at night and hides in the dark crevices of the world by day. Its name, armadillo, comes from its aggressive defensive posture. When threatened, it does not flee. It rears up on its hind legs, lifting its front limbs in a clear, unmistakable challenge, swaying with a rhythmic intensity that warns you that you have crossed a line you cannot uncross. Its venom is a sophisticated cocktail of neurotoxins that attack the human nervous system with ruthless efficiency. A single bite can cause excruciating pain, cold sweats, tremors, and respiratory failure. For the young and the elderly, the encounter is often a race against time. In Brazil alone, 4,000 accidents involving these spiders are recorded every year. They are found in the folds of clothes left out to dry, inside the dark toe of a boot, or hidden within the clusters of bananas destined for markets thousands of miles away. There have been instances where supermarkets in Europe and North America have had to be evacuated because an armadillo hitchhiked across the ocean, a tiny, lethal emissary from the Amazonian shadows. It is a creature that demands a constant, vigilant respect, forcing those who live in its domain to adopt habits that seem like paranoia to the uninitiated: shaking out shoes, checking every box, never reaching into the dark without a light. This pervasive sense of danger, this need for constant alertness, is what defined the lives of those who tried to conquer the forest from the outside. Perhaps the most spectacular failure of the industrial age occurred when one of the world's most powerful men tried to impose his will upon this green labyrinth. In 1928, Henry Ford, the titan of the American automobile industry, decided he would no longer be beholden to the British rubber monopoly. He purchased a vast tract of land along the Tapajos River and set out to build Fordlandia, a Midwestern American town transplanted into the heart of the jungle. He built rows of wooden houses with tin roofs, paved streets, hospitals, and even a golf course. He demanded that his Brazilian workers adhere to American schedules, eat American food, and follow American moral codes, prohibiting alcohol and tobacco within the city limits. But Ford made a fatal mistake. He treated the Amazon like a factory floor. He planted millions of rubber trees in neat, crowded rows, the way one would plant corn in Michigan. In the wild, rubber trees are spaced far apart, protected by the diversity of the forest. In Fordlandia, the monoculture created a biological feast for the leaf blight fungus and the lace bug. Without the natural barriers of the jungle, the pests swept through the plantation like a wildfire. The trees withered, the workers revolted against the foreign food and the rigid clocks, and the humid heat rotted the very foundations of the American dream. By 1945, the project was abandoned, leaving behind a ghost town of rusting machinery and decaying mansions. Today, the jungle is slowly reclaiming Fordlandia, wrapping its vines around the fire hydrants and filling the empty hospital wards with bats and shadows. It stands as a monument to human hubris, a reminder that the Amazon cannot be tamed by the logic of the assembly line. Even the rivers, which served as the highways for these failed empires, hold secrets that challenge our understanding of biology. In the fast-moving rapids where the water churns into a white froth, lives the payara, often called the vampire fish. It is a creature designed for high-speed assassination, possessing 2 massive fangs in its lower jaw that can reach lengths of 15 centimeters. These teeth are so long that the payara has evolved specialized holes in its upper skull to accommodate them when its mouth is closed, preventing the fish from piercing its own brain. It hunts with a ferocity that few other species can match, impaling its prey, often including the much-feared piranha, on its biological spears. To the payara, the piranha is not a nightmare, but merely a meal. But for the people who live along the riverbanks, there is a quieter, more insidious threat that commands far more fear than the vampire fish or the piranha. It is the freshwater stingray, the araya, flat, disc-shaped, and perfectly camouflaged against the sandy bottom. The stingray is nearly invisible to the naked eye. It does not hunt humans, but it punishes those who step on it with a venomous barb located at the base of its tail. The pain of a stingray strike is described as a white-hot agony that can last for days, often leading to deep tissue necrosis and permanent scarring. In remote villages where medical care is a week's journey away, a simple step in the wrong place can result in the loss of a limb or a lifetime of disability. It is the silent guardian of the shallows, a reminder that in this world, the most dangerous things are often the ones you never see until it is too late. The complexity of this ecosystem is not just a product of nature, but of a long and sophisticated partnership with humanity that we are only now beginning to comprehend. For decades, scientists believed the Amazonian soil was naturally poor, incapable of supporting large, sedentary populations. They argued that the forest was a counterfeit paradise, beautiful to look at, but too nutrient deficient for agriculture. This belief was shattered by the discovery of terra preta, the Amazonian dark earth. These are patches of incredibly fertile black soil found throughout the basin, some covering hundreds of hectares. Analysis revealed that this soil is not natural. It is a man-made product created by ancient civilizations through the intentional mixing of charcoal, organic waste, and bone. These people were not just hunter-gatherers wandering through a trackless wilderness. They were master soil engineers who transformed the landscape to feed millions. The very ground we walk on in the Amazon is often a relic of a civilization that understood the forest better than we ever will, leaving us to wonder what other technologies they perfected before they were lost to time. The shadows of these ancient engineers stretch even further into the western reaches of the basin, specifically into the humid, undulating plains of the state of Acre. Here, as the dense green canopy has been peeled back by decades of modern deforestation, a startling sight emerged from the naked earth: geoglyphs. These are massive geometric patterns, etched into the clay with a mathematical precision that defies the primitive tools we once assumed these people possessed. Circles, squares, and perfect octagons, some measuring hundreds of meters across, are connected by straight, sunken avenues and flanked by deep trenches. These were not mere enclosures for cattle or simple village perimeters. They were profound statements of intent, carved into the very skin of the continent. For centuries, these structures remained invisible to the modern world, hidden beneath the roots of a forest that grew over them like a living, breathing shroud. It was only when the trees fell that the ghosts of the past became visible once more, revealing a landscape that was once as ordered and designed as any Roman province. There is a haunting paradox at the heart of Amazonian archaeology that we must confront. To truly see the history of this land, we have often had to destroy its present. The geoglyphs of Acre were only discovered because the forest was cleared for cattle ranching, revealing the geometry of a lost world at the devastating cost of the ecosystem that protected it. It forces us to ask a chilling question: how many thousands of these structures still lie undisturbed beneath the primary rainforest, in areas where the canopy remains intact? How many cities, temples, and ceremonial plazas are currently being held in the silent, crushing embrace of the roots, waiting for a laser pulse from a LiDAR sensor to find them before the chainsaw does much. We are only just beginning to read the first few pages of a book that has been buried for 2 millennia, and every new scan from above reveals that what we call virgin wilderness was once a sprawling, organized landscape of human ambition and sophisticated engineering. While we search for the ruins of men, the forest continues to harbor its own living monuments, some of which are as terrifying as they are majestic. Deep in the most remote, primary forests, far from the sound of any human engine or the reach of any road, lives a creature that embodies the raw, primordial power of the Amazonian night. It is the surucucu, known to science as Lachesis muta, and to the world as the Bushmaster. Among the local inhabitants, it is often called the Pico de Jaca, the jackfruit peak. This name refers to its unique, keeled scales, which are so rough and prominent that they resemble the textured skin of the jackfruit. The surucucu is the largest pit viper in the Western Hemisphere, a master of the shadows that can reach a staggering length of 3.5 meters. Unlike the more famous anaconda, the surucucu does not need to coil around you to kill. It carries within its massive spade-shaped head a chemical cocktail so potent and voluminous that it has earned the grim title of Mata Boy, the bull killer. The terror of the surucucu lies not just in its size, but in its temperament and its absolute silence. It is a ghost of the leaf litter, its heavy body patterned with dark triangles and earthy, coppery tones that render it completely invisible against the forest floor. It is a patient hunter, a sit-and-wait predator that can remain motionless for weeks, draped over the roots of a giant mahogany tree, waiting for a peccary or a large rodent to cross its path. When it strikes, it does not merely bite. It lunges with a force that can knock a grown man off his feet, delivering a massive dose of hemotoxic venom through fangs that can exceed 5 centimeters in length. This venom causes immediate, agonizing destruction of the blood and tissues, leading to internal hemorrhaging and systemic collapse. But it is the warning of the surucucu that haunts the nightmares of those who walk the forest trails. When threatened, this viper will vibrate its tail with such terrifying force against the dry leaves that it produces a low, rhythmic drumming sound, nearly identical to a rattlesnake. Yet, the surucucu has no rattle. It is a mimic of sound, a phantom noise in the dark that tells you that you are standing inches away from death, but gives you no clue as to which direction to run. This fear of the unseen, of the massive and the ancient, often coalesces into the legends that define the Amazonian psyche. Foremost among these is the boyuna, the cobra grande, or the great black snake. Every river community from the mouth of the Amazon to the foothills of the Andes has its stories of a serpent so vast that its movement changes the course of the water, a creature of the deep, dark pools that can swallow entire boats and create whirlpools with a flick of its tail. For generations, European explorers dismissed these tales as the fever dreams of men driven mad by the heat, the humidity, and the crushing isolation of the jungle. They pointed to the fact that the largest documented anacondas rarely exceed 7 meters, hardly the river-spanning monsters described in indigenous folklore. But the forest has a way of validating its legends in the most unexpected and scientific ways. In the coal mines of neighboring Colombia, researchers uncovered the remains of a nightmare that was once a physical reality. They called it Titanoboa cerrejonensis. This was a snake that lived 60 million years ago, a behemoth that reached 15 meters in length and weighed over a ton. It was a predator of such scale that it viewed prehistoric crocodiles as mere snacks. While the Titanoboa is long extinct, its discovery serves as a vital reminder that the Amazonian environment is capable of producing giants that defy human imagination. The legend of the boyuna may not be a literal description of a living animal found in today's rivers, but rather an ancestral memory, a story passed down through the millennia from a time when the first humans to enter this basin may have actually encountered the final, lingering remnants of these prehistoric titans. The forest remembers what the history books have forgotten, and in the dark, tannin-stained waters of the Rio Negro, it is easy to believe that something of that size could still be resting in the silt. Yet, for all its ancient power and its terrifying predators, The Amazon is currently facing a threat that no venom can match and no legend can encompass. It is a slow, chemical strangulation that begins in the remote headwaters and flows through the veins of the entire continent, invisible to the eye, but devastating to the touch. The gold rush of the 21st century has brought thousands of illegal miners into the heart of protected territories, and with them comes mercury. This heavy metal is used to separate gold from the river sediment, and once its job is done, it is discarded directly into the water column. It does not disappear. It enters the food chain, accumulating in the flesh of the fish and eventually in the bodies of the people who depend on those fish for survival. This is the silent hemorrhage of the Amazon. In remote indigenous villages, children are being born with neurological damage and developmental delays, their futures stolen by a poison they cannot see, smell, or taste. The very rivers that have provided life and transport for thousands of years have been turned into conduits of disease and cognitive decay. It is a tragedy of scale that mirrors the forest itself, vast, interconnected, and devastatingly difficult to stop. We are witnessing the dismantling of an ancient world, not by a single, dramatic blow, but by a million small, toxic cuts. Each gram of mercury in the water is a little more poison in the blood of the ribeirinhos, a little more smoke in the sky, and a little less of the mystery that makes this place sacred. The environmental crisis in the Amazon is often framed in terms of hectares lost or carbon sequestered, but the reality is far more visceral. It is the loss of the unknown. When an illegal mining camp destroys a stretch of riverbank, it isn't just the trees that disappear, it is the potential for discovery. We are losing species before they are named, and we are poisoning the very cultures that hold the keys to understanding the forest's medicinal secrets. The cura, or the healing power of the Amazon, is being dissolved in a sea of mercury and mud. The medicinal plants that could hold the cure for the world's most stubborn diseases are being bulldozed to make room for cattle that will graze on soil that will be exhausted in less than a decade. It is a transaction of infinite loss for a momentary gain, a burning of the world's greatest library to keep warm for a single night. As the fires of the Queimadas season light up the satellite maps, turning the heart of South America into a glowing wound of orange and red, the creatures we have discussed today are forced into smaller and smaller pockets of refuge. The surucucu loses its hunting grounds. The stingray finds its sandy shallows choked with mining silt. The electric eel finds the conductivity of its home altered by chemical runoff. The forest is shrinking, and as it does, the distance between the human world and the wild world vanishes, leading to more frequent and more deadly encounters. The animals are not moving into our space, we are crushing them into ours, and in that friction, both sides are losing. The question that looms over the canopy is no longer just about what secrets the forest is hiding, but whether we will leave anything standing long enough to find the answers. We are in a race against our own consumption, trying to map a world that is vanishing beneath our feet, even as we finally develop the tools to understand its true, ancient complexity. This complexity is not merely a matter of biodiversity, but of a deep, human history that was long thought impossible in such a hostile environment. For generations, the prevailing scientific dogma insisted that the Amazon was a counterfeit paradise, a place where the lush greenery was a mask for a soil so nutrient-poor that it could never sustain a large, sedentary civilization. This was the primary justification for viewing the region as a pristine, empty wilderness, a land without a past. But that narrative collapsed entirely when archaeologists began to map patches of what the locals call terra preta do Índio, the Amazonian dark earth. Unlike the surrounding yellow, acidic clay that characterizes much of the basin, this soil is deep, black, and incredibly fertile. It is a miracle of ancient engineering that remains productive today, centuries after the people who created it vanished. This is not a natural phenomenon. It is a synthetic, man-made substrate, a deliberate mixture of charcoal, bone, organic waste, and pottery shards accumulated over generations. The ancient Amazonians were not just surviving in the forest, they were actively manufacturing its fertility, transforming the sterile earth into a powerhouse of food production. This discovery proves that the jungle we see today is, in many ways, an overgrown garden, the legacy of a sophisticated agricultural society that the European mind simply could not fathom. When a modern farmer finds a patch of terra preta on his land, he knows he has found gold. It is a soil that refuses to die, a testament to a lost science of sustainability that we are only now beginning to decode. This revelation of a human-sculpted landscape takes an even more haunting turn in the state of Acre, in the western reaches of Brazil. As the modern chainsaw pushes the forest back, it reveals scars on the earth that were never meant for our eyes. Massive geometric earthworks, perfect circles, squares, and octagons connected by dead straight avenues, emerge from the mud like the blueprints of a forgotten world. These geoglyphs, some spanning hundreds of meters, were built between 1 and 2,000 years ago with a mathematical precision that defies the primitive label once forced upon these cultures. For centuries, the forest held them in a tight, protective embrace, hiding their geometry from the world. We only see them now because we have stripped the land bare. It is a brutal, heartbreaking paradox. To truly see the history of the Amazon, we are forced to destroy the very entity that preserved it. Each new geoglyph uncovered by a bulldozer is a victory for archaeology and a funeral for the ecology that once sheltered it. The forest had buried these monuments in its own growth, and if the canopy had remained intact, we might never have known they existed. It forces us to ask a disturbing question: how many more of these structures, how many more cities and sacred sites still lie hidden beneath the regions of the forest that have not yet been touched? The answer is being provided by a technology that allows us to look through the veil without tearing it down. LiDAR, light detection and ranging, is finally allowing us to peel back the canopy with billions of laser pulses fired from the air. When these scanners flew over the Upano Valley in the Ecuadorian Amazon, the data they sent back sent shockwaves through the global scientific community. They did not find a few isolated huts. They found a sprawling urban network of streets, plazas, drainage canals, and thousands of earthen platforms that once supported a hierarchy of tens of thousands of people. This was a civilization that thrived for 2 millennia, only to be wiped out by the invisible vanguard of European arrival, smallpox and measles that traveled up the river systems faster than the conquistadors themselves. The Amazon is not a virgin forest. It is a vast green cemetery, a cathedral built over the bones of millions who vanished before a single word of their story could be written down by outsiders. We are only just beginning to read the first pages of a book that has been buried for 500 years. As we re-evaluate the human history buried in the mud, we must also confront the living shadows that still claim this territory, the creatures that the modern world has largely ignored. Among the most feared is a creature that almost never graces the screen of a nature documentary, largely because finding it in its natural habitat is an exercise in near-suicidal patience. Let me introduce you to the surucucu, known to science as Lachesis muta, and to the locals as the pico de jaca, or the mata boy, the bull killer. This is the largest pit viper in the Americas, a thick-bodied titan that can reach lengths of 3.5 meters. While the world obsesses over the anaconda is a constrictor. The surucucu is a venomous nightmare. Its skin is rough and rugose, patterned with dark diamonds and golden tones that melt into the leaf litter, making it a ghost on the forest floor. It is a reclusive, primordial predator that avoids human contact at all costs. When that contact happens, the results are almost always final. The venom of the surucucu is a devastating cocktail of hemotoxins, injected in massive quantities through fangs that can be as long as a man's thumb. In the remote corners of the basin, a bite from a surucucu is a death sentence, not because there is no cure, but because the victim is often days of river travel away from the nearest hospital. But there is a detail about this snake that is even more unsettling than its size or its venom. The surucucu is one of the few vipers in the world that vibrates its tail with such violent intensity against the dry leaves that it produces a sound nearly identical to a rattlesnake's rattle. It is a bluff of sound, a warning delivered in a language of dry clicking that can freeze the blood of any explorer. You hear the noise, the warning signal of a threat you cannot see, but your eyes search in vain, for the snake is a master of the invisible. It is often a mere 30 centimeters from your boot, a coil of lethal potential waiting for the one wrong step that signals the end of the conversation. The surucucu does not want to attack you. It simply wants you to know it is there, and that you should retreat. If you understand the message, you survive. If you do not, the forest claims another soul. The terror of the surucucu is grounded in biology, but there are other terrors in the Amazon that drift between the realms of the physical and the mythic. Ask any veteran river pilot about the boyuna, the great black snake of the deep water. In the folklore of the river, the boyuna is a serpent so massive, it doesn't just swim through the river, it is the river itself. A creature whose eyes glow like the lanterns of a ghost ship, and whose wake can capsize heavy barges. For centuries, these stories were dismissed as the fever dreams of isolated men, the exaggerations of fishermen who had spent too much time under the equatorial sun. But then, the Earth gave up a secret that made the legends seem far more plausible. 60 million years ago, in the very wetlands that would become the Amazon, lived the Titanoboa cerejonensis. This was a snake the size of a school bus, weighing over 1,000 kilograms, a predator capable of swallowing a prehistoric crocodile whole. While the Titanoboa is officially extinct, the memory of such a monster seems to have survived in the collective subconscious of the people who navigate these black waters. The green anaconda is the reigning queen of the modern swamp, but the anaconda rarely exceeds 7 meters. The boyuna of legend is said to be 30 meters long, a size that defies modern biology, but perfectly matches the scale of the primordial past. Whether the boyuna is a lingering biological relic, hidden in the unexplored depths of the river, or a ghost of an ancestral trauma, its presence is felt in every ripple of the midnight current. The Amazon is a place where the line between what was and what is becomes blurred by the humidity and the shadows. The local people do not look at the water as a resource. They look at it as a sovereign entity, a dark kingdom ruled by forces that do not answer to the laws of man. This sense of a hidden, sovereign world is what makes the current destruction of the forest so much more than an ecological disaster. We are not just losing trees, we are losing the context of our own history. The Amazon is the last great unread library on the planet, and we are burning it before we have even learned the alphabet of its secrets. Every hectare that falls to the chainsaw is a chapter lost. Every river contaminated by the mercury of illegal mining is a page erased. Every species that goes extinct before it can be described by science is a word that will never be spoken again. We do not know what we are losing because we never took the time to know what was there. The tragedy of the Amazon is not the loss of the known, but the permanent silencing of the unknown. And yet, despite the encroaching fires and the rising tides of industry, the forest remains a place of profound, defiant mystery. Deep in the heart of the basin, where the light of the sun never touches the ground, the ancient rhythms continue. The surucucu waits in the leaves. The terra preta holds the secrets of a lost civilization in its dark embrace, and the boyuna glides through the lightless depths of the river, a shadow that refuses to be measured. The Amazon is still there, ancient and inexorable, watching us with a million hidden eyes, waiting to see if we will finally learn to listen to its silence. But that silence is being shattered. At this very moment, as you watch these images, the Amazon is enduring one of the most brutal environmental crises in its recorded history. The forest, which has stood for 55 million years, is meeting an adversary it cannot simply outgrow or swallow. Deforestation, though it fluctuates under international pressure and local policy, continues to advance at a rate that defies logic. Every minute that passes, somewhere in this vast basin, a giant falls. Every minute, a piece of the world's lungs is carved away. Scientists calculate that since the dawn of modern colonization, the Amazon has lost nearly 20% of its original cover. To the naked eye, it still looks infinite, but the mathematics of ecology tell a darker story. We are approaching what experts call the tipping point, a threshold of no return. The Amazon is not just a collection of trees, it is a self-regulating climatic machine. It generates its own rain through a process of transpiration, where the forest breathes moisture back into the atmosphere, creating the very clouds that sustain it. If you lose too much of that cover, the cycle breaks. The forest can no longer generate enough rain to support itself, and the remaining trees begin to die of thirst. This leads to more drying, more death, and a feedback loop that transforms the world's greatest rainforest into a dry, barren savanna. Some models place this point of collapse at 25%. We are hovering at the edge of the abyss, closer than we have ever been. While the chainsaws work from the edges, the rivers are being poisoned from within. Illegal gold mining, or garimpo, has turned pristine waterways into veins of toxic sludge. To separate gold from the river sand, miners use mercury. It is a primitive, devastating process. The mercury escapes into the water, entering the bodies of the fish, and eventually, the bodies of the people who rely on those fish for survival. Today, Ribeirinho communities in the heart of the jungle show mercury levels in their blood comparable to the most contaminated industrial zones of the First World. It is a silent, invisible massacre. Children are born with neurological delays, and adults lose their motor functions, their bodies betraying them after decades of consuming the very water that should have given them life. Entire cultures are being envenomed in the shadows, far from the headlines. The assault continues with the illegal wildlife trade, a multi-billion-dollar international industry that treats the Amazon as a warehouse of commodities. It is a perverse market that targets the most visible species, parrots, monkeys, and jaguars, but also the most obscure, rare beetles, venomous frogs with colors that seem painted by hand, and ornamental fish that exist in only one specific stream on Earth, are snatched from the wild to satisfy the whims of collectors in Asia and Europe. The cruelty of this trade is calculated in its mortality rates. For every single animal that reaches a glass cage across the ocean alive, 5 to 10 others have died in the journey, crushed in suitcases or suffocated in plastic bags. Because many of these species are unknown to science, they have no legal protection. They are ghosts being hunted into extinction before they can even be named. And then, there is the fire. Every dry season, thousands of fires are deliberately set to clear land for cattle or soy. These are not the natural fires of a healthy ecosystem. They are wounds inflicted by man. Many of these blazes spiral out of control, consuming millions of hectares in a single season, turning the sky over distant cities like Sao Paulo black in the middle of the afternoon. But the most dangerous fires are not the ones that make the world news. The true death of the Amazon is a slow hemorrhage. The thousand small daily fires that no satellite tracks, the quiet degradation that thins the canopy and lets the sun bake the once damp soil. Yet, even in this hour of darkness, there is a pulse of hope. It lives in the names of those who refuse to let the forest die. It lives in the vast system of national parks and protected areas that, despite the pressure, still safeguard millions of hectares of primary growth. It lives in the demarcated indigenous lands, which satellite imagery proves are the most effective barriers against deforestation. Where the indigenous peoples hold the title to their ancestral soil, the forest remains standing. They are the front line, the guardians who have known this land for millennia, and who are finally, after centuries of being silenced, beginning to be heard by the world. Hope also resides in the new generation of Amazonian biologists who are out in the field every single week, discovering new species in the face of the encroaching fire. They are racing against time to catalog the library before the building burns down. There is hope in the rise of a bioeconomy, a way of living with the forest that generates wealth from its fruits, its oils, and its medicines without felling a single trunk. From the laboratories of Manaus to the riverbanks of the Xingu, people are proving that the forest is worth infinitely more standing than dead. The battle for the Amazon is not yet won, but it is certainly not lost. I want to close this journey with a thought that has haunted me throughout the making of this documentary. We live in an age where we believe we have mapped everything. We have sat-nav for every street, high-resolution photos of every square meter of the planet, and a Wikipedia page for every large animal. We have been lulled into the false belief that the era of exploration ended centuries ago, that there are no frontiers left to cross. The Amazon is the living proof that this is a lie. Right here, on this same planet, at this very moment, there are species that no human eye has ever classified. There are civilizations buried under the roots that no archaeologist has ever touched. There are geological wonders that defy our textbooks and chemical compounds in the plants that could cure the diseases of the future. The Amazon is not just a forest, it is the final great mystery. It is a testament to the fact that the world is still bigger, older, and more complex than we are. When we destroy a hectare of this forest, we aren't just losing wood, we are losing a chapter of our own story. Every contaminated river is a page of history erased. Every species lost is a word we will never get to read. The true tragedy is not just losing what we know, it is losing the unknown. It is killing the things we never even had the chance to respect. But for now, the forest still breathes. Even as we speak, a Lonomia caterpillar sits motionless on a mossy trunk, its venomous spines a silent warning. A giant centipede hangs from a cave ceiling, waiting for the flutter of a bat's wing. A suracucu coils itself in the damp leaves, a master of the shadows. A peixe cachorra strikes through the white water of a remote rapid, its fangs gleaming in the filtered light. An electric eel rests in the mud, a biological battery waiting to defend its kingdom. A stingray lies hidden beneath the river sand, and a boiling river sends its steam up into the canopy of a valley where no road has ever reached. The paleotokas still hold the claw marks of giants that walked the earth 10,000 years ago, and lost cities continue their long sleep beneath the towering saber trees. The Amazon is still there. It is wild, it is ancient, and it is largely unexplored. It is ready to teach us everything we do not yet know, if only we have the humility to listen. It doesn't ask for much, only that we leave it in peace long enough to let its secrets survive. If this journey through the hidden Amazon has moved you, if it has unsettled you, or awakened a desire to protect this last great frontier, please leave a like on this video right now. Every like is a signal to the world, and the algorithms that people still care about, deep, courageous, and rare storytelling, the kind that looks where others refuse to see. If you haven't already, subscribe to Reino Selvaging and join our community of explorers. Turn on the notification bell so you don't miss our next journey into the unknown, and share this video with someone who needs to hear the story of the forest. The Amazon is looking at us, and as long as there are those who look back with respect and wonder, there is hope for the green heart of the world. Thank you for walking this path with me. We will see you on the next wild journey. Until then, keep the mystery alive.